let's talk about camera bodies, because camera bodies are where I see the most money lost and the most misuse of funds in any video production environment. What's going on, everybody, and welcome to episode 1 of the Always Be Creating podcast, the show that bridges the gap between video production and business growth. I'm your host, Bobby Kawecki, and my goal over the course of this first episode is to sort of bring clarity and understanding to what I believe is the biggest issue currently facing video production growth, whether you are a solopreneur or you are growing a team, whether that's 1, 2, 10 people, and that's buying the wrong camera gear. Now, that's not buying the best camera gear, but that's buying the wrong camera gear for you, right? And misallocating funds. So we're going to cover the biggest mistakes I see when people are going through and sort of making their purchasing decisions when it comes to new gear, why that is important overall, and kind of how I would rank your purchase priorities, right? But before any of that, the number one thing that will help inform your video production gear purchases is having a very clearly defined goal of your video production output. Are you creating a vlog? Are you starting a podcast? Are you creating vertical clips? Are you doing travel films? Do you want just a camera that fits in your pocket so you can take pictures of your family and post them on Instagram? You have to be crystal clear on what it is you're looking to achieve. Otherwise, you will always get stuck in this cycle of buying gear that's not right for you, having to sell it at a loss, coming out with less money, buying the next gear, and it just becomes this vicious cycle where you're not actually gaining any ground when it comes to your videos and how they look overall, right? And if you're in camera, YouTube space, you know how easy it is to get caught up in the new gear FOMO zeitgeist. Whenever a new camera, lens, mic, light drops, your For You page, your homepage is just stacked top to bottom with all your favorite creators making videos on that product. So much so that you yourself then feel like, my God, I cannot physically achieve what I want to put on video unless I go out right now and buy that product. And it's senseless, it's stupid, and for 99.999% of people, it's wrong, right? Broken clock is right twice a day. So for that minuscule percent, that new product might be exactly what they need to take them to the next level. But it's not a one-stop fix for everybody on the planet. A great example of this most recently is the Insta360 One X3. Insta360 One X3. I'll put it down below in the comments. I'll pop a video or a photo right here on the screen. But it's a 360 camera that's also an action camera. So damn cool. You just sort of hold the stick up and it takes a 360 video of everything around you. You don't have to worry where the camera's pointed. You don't have to worry if it's raining or if you're snowboarding or in the water. It just does it all with just one click of a button. And that's great. It's really cool. And it's very easy to get caught up when you see something like that to be like, oh, I need that right now. Newsflash. Unless you're a travel vlogger, you create content outdoors, or you're somebody who is looking to create some more dynamic shots within their vlogging content just as a supplement, spending the $400, $500 on that 360 camera will actually set you back in your video production workflow. It's so easy, and it's happened to me too, which is why I want to sort of make this episode to kind of help everybody else avoid the pitfalls that I've taken, where you buy something because you think it's going to help you get better. It doesn't. You get discouraged. You don't end up using it. You don't create. I'm a big believer in removing all of the barriers to entry that you can to video creation, having the defined outcome of what you want to create, and just going all in on that, right? Like the sexy new gear isn't always what's going to 10x your output, right? Is this going to help me make 10 more videos? Is this going to help me make 10 more thumbnails? Is this going to make my videos 10% more brightly lit or sound 10% better? If that's what you're trying to solve for and you spend money on a brand new lens, well, then you're not really solving for anything. You're wasting money, and while it, looks cool that you have the new latest and greatest Sony lens and it's a G Master, it's not really doing anything to help your audio quality. The biggest trap I see in this is when people want to start a vlog. I'm gonna start a vlog. You've heard this, you've said this, you know this person in your life, and they say, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna start a vlog. So what do? They buy a big mirrorless camera with a pretty big mic on top of it. And then, of course, because it's a vlog, you have to have the big Joby Gorilla Pod. And obviously, you want a good lens that creates that nice background blur like you see here, which are pretty heavy most of the time. And then you put all that together and you realize, oh, this is kind of cumbersome to take around with me all the time. I'll leave it at home, or it's raining. It's not the right time for this. When if you had just used your phone, and I know that sounds very cliche, everybody said just use your phone. But if you had just used your phone in your pocket, you'd be creating more. You'd be better at making videos. And through all of that sort of trying process, you'd be creating more traction within your video business. You would be gaining more exposure day after day, video after video, just by dint of using something that is easier to get you into video production. So there you go, right? You don't need to go out and buy the newest, latest, and greatest thing, regardless of what your favorite YouTuber tells you. You can very easily buy used camera gear, whether that's a lens, a mic, a light. Usually people take pretty good care of their camera gear. I've never had any issues. I bought quite a lot of stuff on eBay, and I can't say I've had any bad eggs out there, but fair warning. So let's move into the next part of this, which is, okay, I've got $1,000, right? I am willing to put forth my chips. I want to grow my video business. I've got $1,000. What are the things I should be upgrading first in my video repertoire? And the first one isn't actually anything to do physically with video, and that's your knowledge. And it's not going to cost you very much at all. In fact, if you head on over to BAMX right now, we have tons of courses on how to be a better editor, how to edit captions in your videos, what sort of gear we use, and how to place those in production situations. Or if you want a hyper-specific answer to a question, you live in the YouTube age. You can find the answer to pretty much anything you want, because how are you going to know how to film the content, edit the content, what the right codecs are, what lens should you buy? Educate yourself on the type of video gear for the type of video you're looking to create. And I see this all the time where people want to create long-form podcasts, but the videos that they're watching teach them how to use a green screen or how to color video or how they can better animate objects in After Effects. None of that helps you shoot, balance audio, or turn around and edit a podcast quicker. So knowledge is the number one thing you should invest in your video production gear, whether that is video-based knowledge, book-based knowledge, joining different groups or communities, like the one on BAMX, that sort of foster a community that helps people solve problems together. Knowledge is the number one thing that you should be doing, right? After that, in terms of real-world application, what is the very first upgrade you should make to your set? Whether you are on an iPhone, a Sony a7 IV like I'm using right here, a Red Raptor 8K camera, the very first thing that you need to upgrade on your set, regardless of what camera you're using, is your audio. You've heard this before, and the reason you've heard this before is because it's true. It's true in your consumption habits, and it's true in your creation habits. You will bounce off a video that sounds bad way quicker than you will bounce off a video that looks bad. Perfect example of this is a dude named Doug DeMuro. He does car reviews. He is one of the largest car review channels on the internet. He shoots all of his videos with all these millions of subscribers on an iPhone. But he also has a lav mic, and he sounds fantastic. He brings his personality to the screen. He sounds good, even if you can tell it's not filmed on a Sony a7 IV with a very expensive 20 to 40 lens. So audio is the number one thing you should upgrade. If you're in a podcast setting, you don't need a Shure SM7B, the mic you see on Joe Rogan and all the other big podcasts. It's $400. You can, for the same price, get 4 Rode Video Pod mics. Yeah, you have to buy an XLR input as well to connect it to your computer, but Rode also makes USB mics that hook directly into your computer. You can get 4 of these as well for the same price as that Shure SM7B, and they sound fantastic. I'm actually recording this whole video, this whole podcast on the Rode NT USB. If you're wondering about any of these products, I have a free ebook over on BAM that goes over all of the best different gear setups for podcasting, vlogging, and video creation. So if you want, totally free, you guys can head over and check out those. And shoot me a DM, shoot me a message if you have any specific questions on gear specifically as well. We've covered what it looks like in a podcast scenario, but what does it look like in a filming scenario? You are creating content in front of the camera, whether that's vertical, long form with like a vlog, or talking head, educational videos. I would say it's twofold. Number one, you need a shotgun mic. Right now, I am using the Rode NTG USB. Again, I'll link all of these things that I'm bringing up down below. It's a mic, plugs right into your camera. You set the gain on your camera. As long as you're not more than 5-6 feet away from the person, you're going to get great sound at a pretty reasonable price. The next step up from there is a wireless lav system. This is more for if you're filming someone else. It doesn't let that person need to be so close to the camera where they're always within earshot of the mic, but they can go far away. And there's 100 of solutions that are coming out on the market now, whether it's the DJI wireless Go mics or the Rode wireless Go mics. They all fit in a neat little case. There's 2 transmitters and 1 receiver. One sits on the top of your camera. You can do interviews. They plug into your computer. You don't even need a camera. If you're just doing like field recording, you can just turn them on and they'll start recording. You can pull the files off of them from there. Those are the first audio-based things I would upgrade if you're creating content in front of your camera, as well as like we talked about, if you're creating a podcast as well. From audio, the next thing you should invest in is lighting, because good lighting can outdo an okay lens, but a great lens can never compensate for bad lighting. When I talk about lighting, you should always have a big enough light source here, like the one I'm using, the Aperture P60C. It's great little LED light. I think it's under $250. Clips right onto my desk, comes with a softbox, gives you a nice, pleasing look, creates a lot of light behind you, and is pretty cost effective for what you're looking to create, whether that's a podcast or when I create straight to camera talking head videos like this. Having a big light source that is not taking up too much space so it can kind of always be ready to be turned on, turned off whenever you want to shoot a video, if you're doing it in a studio environment, is super important. When you're creating like the long form podcast at BAM, we just built out a new set. You guys will see that pretty soon. We'll do some filming in there as well. We have an Aperture 120D in there. It's got a big C-stand with a big softbox lantern on it, but that's really overkill if you're just doing face-to-camera type podcasts like this. Short of that, guess what? If you've got a big enough window, that can be your key light. Don't shoot your videos with, the light behind you so you get that ugly silhouette. Create a proper lighting environment, and if that's something you guys want to know more about how to create a proper lighting environment, what a 3-point lighting system is, let me know. I'll be happy to create some content on that, whether that's in BAMX or here on the channel for the podcast. I would have a ton of fun doing that. But there's also a price differential. The Aperture 120D, yeah, it's only a little bit more expensive than the Aperture P60C, but then again, you have to come up with a C-stand softbox. You have to have enough room for it. It's overkill, and you'll never use all of its capabilities as well, but it'll be good to go, right? You could have a light like this and not use a very fast lens, which is something that has an f-stop of higher than, the smaller the f-stop, the faster the lens. The faster the lens, the more light comes in. The more light comes in, the more blurred out and cinematic your shot is. That's kind of the equation of how it falls. If you have a moderately priced and decently fast lens, something around f4, but a really well-placed, bright, soft light that is being used as your key light, that'll outdo your moderately slow lens any day of the week. And a moderately slow lens will cost less than a pretty decent light, and you'll still have money to spare for a new microphone, rather than just, I bought a really expensive $1,800 or $1,000 lens, but my shot still kind of looks sucky, right? So far we've had knowledge at the top is the first thing you should invest in when it comes to your video production workflow, then audio, and then lighting. Now we get into the more like physical stuff, right? And this is highly debated. You go back and forth on it. But in my opinion, your lenses are more important than your body. You'll change your body more often than you'll change your lenses. So being entrenched in a lens ecosystem and a camera ecosystem that is something that you like working with. For example, we at BAM and me personally, I only shoot on Sony because it is one lens mount for all their lenses, whether it's their cinema line, whether it's their prosumer line, whether it's their, cheaper, more run and gun interchangeable lens cameras. One lens mount for all of them. So this lens, the Tamron 20-40 f2.8, I think it costs like $700. That $700 lens can also go on the $10,000 Sony FX6 or the $700 Sony ZV-E10. It's all the same mount. So lenses are the one thing where I would say pick and choose carefully. Pick the lens that is going to give you the widest opportunity for creation. I'm using a 20-40. A 20-40 is a fantastic focal range. It is wide enough where if I want to create content where my hand is extended, I'm doing like that vlog style thing, totally can. 40 is also creeped in enough. It's also zoomed in enough where you get that nice compression at 35, where if I wanted to even do like photos, like portrait photography at 35, I could do it with this lens. It's not a prime lens. It's not a 50 millimeter 1.2 that costs upwards of $1,000, almost $2,000, because that's only good for like one thing and one thing only. That's portraits or like B-roll if you're into that kind of thing. Pick your lenses very carefully, but they are more important than your camera bodies. You'll have your lenses, if you choose them right, longer than you'll have your camera bodies, because the upgrades on the camera bodies come to market much quicker than the upgrades on lenses, right? Like your lens is just glass, metal. Yeah, maybe it might autofocus a little bit better. Maybe it might be a little bit lighter, but on the whole, if you find 1 to 3 lenses that can shoot your entire content span, whether that's vlogging, podcasting, vertical content, which more often than not can just be a wide angle 16 to 35. The wide angle mid zoom range is probably what I'd recommend for most people to upgrade to first, whether that's a Sony 16 to 35, a Tamron 17 to 28, a Tamron 20 to 40. These are the lenses that, like I said, are going to cover your widest span of content and give you the most opportunity to create, whether that is vlogs, podcasts, you name it. I've bought and sold way more camera bodies than I've bought and sold camera lenses because I picked an ecosystem. And that might for you be Canon, not Sony. It might be Fuji. If it's Nikon, I'm sorry for your loss. F in the chat for all the Nikon shooters out there. And finally, let's talk about camera bodies, because camera bodies are where I see the most money lost and the most misuse of funds in any video production environment, right? And the reason for that is because there is like a ceiling when it comes to features on a camera. Like I said, I'm shooting on a Sony a7 IV. It shoots in 4K, shoots in 1080, shoots slow motion in 1080, shoots in 10-bit. I can color grade, I can also shoot great photos on it. It is a all-around workhorse camera. I use pretty much every feature, and every feature on this camera in some way, shape, or form adds to my creative workflow. I can shoot in 4K, which means when we shoot podcasts, if I have to go a little bit wider, that's fine. I can just punch in after the fact without losing any sort of resolution. It also is a high megapixel count, so I can shoot photos. And it costs, I think at the time of shooting this, about $2,200. And it does all of that. It does all of that amazingly. Yeah, there's some downsides. It's got rolling shutter. It's a little bit big. The battery performance isn't that great. I wish the screen was a little nicer, but all of those are just drops in the bucket when considered as a whole. I could have gone out and spent $4,000 on the Sony FX3, which is a Netflix-approved camera. People are actually using a prosumer camera to create movies. I think it's called The Creator, and like one other movie are launching that were shot on the Sony FX3. The amount of crossover for what I do between the A7 IV and the FX3 are massive. But where the crossover ends in terms of the features I will never use on the Sony FX3, because I don't need 4K 120. I don't need timecode. I don't need an audio XLR handles. Would I like all of these things? Hell yeah, sure. It's a dope looking camera, and I'm sure you would want one too. I'm sure you would love to say that you shot this on the Sony FX3. But do you need it? And will all of the features on the camera be used to their fullest potential to create your content? Having a Sony FX3 in my repertoire won't help me create 10 more videos. It won't help me create videos 10% better. It won't do any of that. It'll just drain double the amount of money from my bank account to shoot projects that aren't real. And that's the pitfall that so many people fall into. And it most often happens with new camera bodies because, oh my God, this camera shoots 8K. Are you shooting 8K? Are your consumers consuming their content in 8K? No. They're watching on Instagram. They're watching on YouTube. And even if they're watching on a OLED TV like the one back there, they're still not streaming it in 8K. And I'm sure there will be people in the comments who say, oh, but it's better for reframing, it's this, it's that. Sure, it might be. But is it better at the price tag that it calls for? Now, if I was sitting here talking to you saying, hey, I'm a movie director, I shoot films, I shoot feature films, well then yeah, something like the Sony FX3 would be a great option because of all the rich features it provides. And I'm sure all of the cinema glass that it accepts would go well with it. But I'm not. And more than likely, neither are you. You're creating content for your brand online. And to do that is a very low bar to entry. It could be your iPhone with a lav mic like the Rode or DJI and a bright light source. If you are creating content at a way high scale for your business and you want to up the production quality, then yeah, it could be a mirrorless camera. Doesn't have to be a full frame. It can be APS-C, and it'll still be cost effective where you can either get multiple cameras for multiple angles, or you can either get a camera, a bigger light, and a better mic. You don't always need to shell out money for the newest, best, greatest, and brand new to the market thing. Find the most cost-effective setup that will get you in the position to start creating and start creating. You don't need the latest and greatest thing because odds are you probably won't use all the latest and greatest high price tag features on the camera anyway. So to recap, on the list of video production items you should first invest in to upgrade your overall feel and aesthetic, number one, it should be knowledge. You got to know how to use the stuff that you want to buy if you want to use it effectively. Number two is audio. If you don't sound good, people are going to bounce off your video, your podcast, what have you, very quickly, and they're not going to come back. After that is lighting. If you sound good and you're well lit, that'll do a lot of the work for you in terms of creating a pleasing image that people are going to want to look at and people are going to want to listen to. Then your lenses. You have to know what type of lens you want and understand that you don't always need the name brand lens. It doesn't have to be a Sony G Master if you can get the same look with even more versatility off-brand with something like a Tamron or Sigma. And finally, then you should upgrade your camera bodies and do it in incremental steps while clearly understanding what this camera will be used for and why. I hope this helped. I hope that in the future we can have even longer conversations. I have a ton of conversations with other people in the video industry as well to discuss how to create content that converts, how we are using the gear, software, and overall workflows to grow our businesses and our companies. And I can't wait to go on this journey with you, the listeners, as well. If you like what you heard and you want to hear more of it, please leave a good review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you consume this podcast content. Throw me a follow on Instagram and like and sub on YouTube. And until next time, always be creating.